My name is Dr. Kevin Pecca. I wanted to make a podcast that exposes people to the true miracles of life and health. All the guests on this show have been specially picked because they bring something positive to the world. They have some of the most amazing and inspiring life stories. These people have a passion for living, healing, and leaving the world better than they found it. There is something inside these people that made them keep fighting through all the tough times, even when people told them it was not possible. They carried on and made their lives beautiful again. And now they are sharing their experiences with the world. This is the Expect Miracles podcast. Enjoy the show. Today on the Expect Miracles podcast, we have Dr. Chad Billiris. Dr. Chad Billiris is an upper cervical chiropractor out of Cape May, New Jersey. Aside from being an extremely talented upper cervical chiropractor, Dr. Chad has an amazing life story and has some very impressive credentials in the world of martial arts. Dr. Chad spent 10 years in Korea and studied with the top masters in hapkido and taekwondo, earning himself a 4th degree black belt in hapkido and a 2nd degree black belt in taekwondo. He also spent time in China, earning himself a 5th degree black belt in Tai Chi, and became the first Westerner to be elevated to the status of disciple. On the podcast today, Dr. Chad shares his incredible life story and touches on the art of mastery and the many different forms of healing he has come across in the Orient. Please welcome Dr. Chad Billiris. So, Chad, you're from South Jersey and everything. What were you into growing up as a kid?
When I was a kid, I was a typical just sports jock.
Yeah.
I loved all kinds of sports. My passion was probably football and basketball. I spent most of my time playing sports. When I wasn't playing sports, I was playing video games.
Did you ever go to the chiropractor growing up at all?
I did not. Actually, had never even heard of a chiropractor.
Nice. So how was your health throughout playing all those contact sports growing up? Did you ever have any injuries that set you back at all, or you're pretty healthy throughout your career?
I know. I actually suffered a lot of injuries. When I was in high school, I developed stingers, or just the typical radiating pain down the arm that most people experience.
Head-to-head contact, man, that'll do it.
Yeah. You know, it was one of those things where I played defensive end, you take a big hit, and next thing you know, my arm was numb. And at that time, I had all my faith in the medical profession. My father was a nurse, so
nice.
My family kind of grew up in that model. And they just said, well, you know, give it a few minutes, it'll come back, you're all good.
Yeah.
Put ice on it. And I didn't think anything of it until I ended up going to college. Actually went to college on a partial football scholarship. And I don't know, something in me always felt that the natural was better, even though I had that background. And my shoulder just got progressively worse. And I ended up getting some MRIs, and they thought maybe I had a torn rotator cuff or something along those lines. Maybe I tore the labrum in my shoulder, but nothing was really conclusive.
Yeah.
So the doctors just said, you know, we'll just give you a bunch of shots and see where it goes from there. And I remember I denied the shots.
What was it? Cortisone?
Cortisone shot. Yeah, I did. Yeah. I had a cortisone. And my coach was there, and basically they said, what are you doing? You got to take this shot if you want to play.
That's unreal. Did something just feel off where you knew it just wasn't solving the root cause of the problem, or? Yeah,
I just felt like, you know, no one could give me the real answers. And I just felt that putting something synthetic in my body like that wasn't good. I didn't know why at that time. I didn't have any scientific basis to base that opinion on.
I just felt it. Yeah.
Yeah, I just felt it.
So you denied the shots?
I denied the shots.
And did you continue to play, or it was too painful?
I reached out to actually some orthopedic surgeons, and they said, you know, you can get surgery, but we would actually recommend you stop playing.
Oh, okay.
And I felt
crushed.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that was who I was.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, tied my identity to playing sports. And now I was at college. I chose the college I was at primarily based on the scholarship I got for football. And, you know, it was just like,
it's devastating. Wow. Yeah. I was the same way. I played hockey. I was only able to play 2 years, and then too many concussions. I knew I couldn't play anymore. And I remember trying to play my junior year, but the headaches and the concussions were just too much. And like, it was the worst feeling in the world, because at that age, that's all that matters. And it's just devastating when you can't play anymore and you see all your friends doing it.
Yeah.
Something else.
My roommate was on the football team. So you know, he'd get up and go to practice, and I was there sitting in the room. It was terrible.
How many years were you able to play?
I was only able to play 2 years in college.
Yeah. Okay. What happened after that? What was the next thing up for you?
When I was going from middle school to high school, I'd got involved in martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I immersed myself 100% in martial arts again. And I just started to train really hard. And I felt like, well, if I can't do sports, if I can't play football, I'm at least going to do martial arts.
Did you hone in on anything specifically?
I did. At that time, I was doing hapkido, which is a traditional Korean martial art. I started really working hard at that. I started a club at my school.
Nice.
And that grew to be a pretty decent club on campus.
That's awesome. Did you graduate college in 4 years?
I did.
Yeah.
I graduated college in 4 years. And as I was getting ready to graduate, I had met a Korean exchange student, a Japanese exchange student at the university.
Nice.
And they needed a place to stay one summer. So I brought them home to my house here in New Jersey, and they stayed with me. And then at the end of the summer, they said, your family and you've treated us so well, we'd like you to come to our house.
No way.
And I was blown away. At first, I was like, what do you mean, your dorm room? Like, what And they said, no, if you can come up with the airfare, we would love to take you to Japan and Korea. We know you love martial arts. We'll take you around. We'll show you a lot of great martial artists. We'll introduce you to the culture. We think it'd be a really good time. What do you say? So I talked to my parents, and they said, if you can get the money up. At the time, I was working a summer job. And they said, if you can get the money up, by all means, go ahead. So going into my senior year of college, I went for like 2.5 weeks in Japan, and then I flew directly to Korea and did another 2.5 weeks there, and I came home. And
were you pretty interested in the culture at this point? Like, was your teacher in martial arts, was he a pretty rooted guy? Was he from over there, or?
Yeah, so the funny thing is my teacher was American, but he always, we had a Korean flag hanging in our school, and he would always talk about Korea and tell us about these old Korean masters. So the interest was there. I was very curious, and to a large extent, I wanted to find out if the stories were true or not. Like, I wanted to see it with my own eyes.
Were you just hearing some wild stories?
Yeah, I was hearing amazing stories of these feats that these people could do, and my instructor couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And so, I want to see
what's going on here. Yeah. So what happened? What was your first trip over there like?
So my first trip over there was amazing. It was everything and more than I had ever expected. And it's one of those things, like, you don't know till you know.
Yeah.
Once I knew about it, I wanted to get back.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to get back, but I knew I wanted to get back. I brought the subject up to my Korean friend, and he said, well, why don't you apply to teach English? He said, you'll have a 4-year degree. That's what you need. You can go over. He said, that way you'll make some money. You don't have to worry about asking your parents for any money. It'll be a good chance for you. So that's what I did. And I didn't hear anything. I applied in December. I didn't hear anything. I graduated in May, moved back to New Jersey, was kind of contemplating what I was going to do next, put some job applications in at some different places. And suddenly I got a call end of June from a school in South Korea. And they said, can you be over here in a week?
What?
And I talked to my parents again. I said, what I want to do.
Hell yeah.
So after my mom made me promise that it'd only be a year, I agreed. Yeah. And I went over.
That's so awesome of your parents. I feel like there would be some parents out there who'd be like, absolutely not. You're not doing that.
Oh, yeah.
That was awesome that they were with you on that.
Yeah.
So what were you really drawn to when you got over there? What did you like? What's the culture like over there?
The culture is nothing you can really explain. It's really something you have to live. But one thing I did realize is I was very naive in the fact that I thought, I'll come over here for a year. I'll learn the language. I'll learn the culture. I'll do some martial arts. And I soon realized that a year wasn't going to be enough.
No way, yeah.
If you don't mind me telling a short story about my first martial art experience.
Yeah.
I knew how to read the word hapkido in Korean. I knew how to write it. And I knew a few Korean words, but that was the extent. So I went around town looking for a sign that said hapkido. And I actually found one that was really close to my house. And I walked up in the school, and the instructor was there. And I remember I went to him, through sign language, I'm telling him I want to train. And so he hands me a uniform and he hands me a white belt. Well, I had already reached black belt, my first degree black belt in America. So I said to him, I said, I'm a black belt.
Oh, man.
And he looked at me and, in broken English, he goes,
No.
black belt? And I said, yeah. And he goes, no, you're a white belt. So I was kind of
a little pissed off.
Disappointed. But the very first class, he paired me up with this high school student. He wasn't a senior, a junior or sophomore in high school. And we started sparring.
What belt was he?
He was a red belt.
Uh-huh.
And he whooped me. He whooped me bad.
That's funny.
And so at that time, I realized, I'm a white belt. So
wow,
that was a big wake-up call. And I said, look, this is going to take some time. This is not something you just jump into. And
so that was one of your goals going over there, not only to teach English, but definitely further your career in martial arts.
I would say that was my primary goal.
Oh, okay.
Further the teaching English was just a way to make that possible.
Wow. That's unreal.
Yeah.
What happened after that? How often were you training over there?
So in Korea, that was another big surprise because when I was in America, we trained 2 days a week, sometimes 3 days a week for an hour or so. They trained 6 days a week, 2 hours, 2.5 hours a day.
Wow.
And on some days, it was up to 4 hours. So
you were fully immersed.
Fully immersed. It was a full-time commitment. And if you missed a class, you paid for it. So
in what way? Just
either physical or punishment. So they wouldn't teach you. If you missed a class, you weren't allowed to learn anything. So there was incentive to be there and to be there as much as possible.
That's great.
Somewhere along the line, I met my wife, and she ended up understanding that this was a goal of mine. So she actually helped me track down. And so I knew who the famous martial artists were. She actually helped me track them down.
Okay, so you left the school you were at?
I left the school I was at. I actually moved 2 hours south to a remote country village and to train with the disciple of the founder of hapkido.
Damn, this is unreal.
Yeah, and that was intense. Their practices started at 5 o'clock in the morning on the dot. You had to be there 2.5 hours.
5 a.m., huh?
5 a.m. And at one point, I was riding my bike an hour to get there. Whoa. So I was waking up 3 o'clock in the morning to get there.
Oh, my God.
To say it strained my relationship with my wife would be an understatement. But like I said, it was a commitment you had to make, and they considered that to be your top priority. So I was training there. That instructor required you. He was 70-some years old. He required you to train 5 o'clock in the morning, then again at night at 7 o'clock. So before and after work, he expected you to be there. So it was taking a toll, and my shoulder kept getting worse. My neck was getting worse. I tried to fight through it, but I would say the skills I was learning were like nothing I had learned to that point.
So you were getting pretty good at this point.
Yes.
So did you have to seek out some, I don't know, do they have good acupuncture over there or other natural, because you're into the natural stuff at this point still, right?
Through the martial art training, they talked a lot about Chi. My martial arts instructors were the first ones to start talking to me about diet. They were recommending no bread, no sugar. They were actually recommending no milk, things I'd never heard of. And this was a big paradigm shift for me because, like I said, I consider myself to be healthy, but I definitely grew up in the American culture where it was like the food pyramid. You get your protein. And so I absorbed it because I wanted to be the best I could, but it was difficult at first. But yeah, I eventually found an acupuncture doctor. I actually went at first because I was having stomach problems.
Like what? Just digestive issues?
Digestive issues. My appendix actually burst at one point.
Over in Korea?
Yeah, over in Korea.
Wow. You have that removed?
I had that removed in Korea.
Wow.
But I went over and the guy, he said, look, I'm going to put some needles in different places of your body. You'll throw up. You'll feel better. And
he told you were going to throw up.
He told me I was going to throw up. And while I wasn't a fan of throwing up, I was intrigued.
Yeah.
So he ended up putting a bunch of needles in my feet. And the next thing I know, I threw up. I did feel better. And I asked my wife, I said, can you go ask him to teach me this? And she said, you can't ask a doctor to teach you this. You got to go to school for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, no. So I actually refused to leave the office till she went and talked to the guy. And he ended up saying that he was a Christian missionary. He did a lot of Christian missionary work where he would donate his medical services to help spread the gospel. And he said, if I was willing to help him improve his English, he would teach me.
Look at that.
Yeah. And so he actually made me order some books. We ordered some books off Amazon, had them shipped to Korea. So it was like a regular class. He gave me homework. I would come over. We would go through chapters of the book. We would spend about 2 hours a night, 2 days a week, until I got to the point where he would have me wear a suit and say, come in, I want you to sit on the patients. And he'd introduce me as Dr. Chad, a visiting doctor from America. At that point, I was not a doctor. And he was actually having me treat some of the patients.
That's unreal.
It was the most unreal experience I ever had in my life. And that's what led me ultimately to want to become a chiropractor, because I started to enjoy the idea of being able to help people on a holistic level. And he really spent a lot of time with me, showing me that there's a cause for everything, but you got to be able to search out that cause. And a lot of times, if there's a dysfunction in one area, there's a dysfunction in another area. And you got to find out what's the primary dysfunction. So that was a total paradigm shift on my part of the way I look at medicine. And he actually became not only a mentor, but a great friend. And he was the person that I would then go to and say, my son has a fever. What should I do? And he was the one that started to say things like, let the fever run its course, or don't worry about this, or no, don't take that. And that was a real eye-opener.
Definitely. Do you find yourself taking anything that you've learned with him into the chiropractic field?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What's one of the main things?
In my office, I do a full neurological exam on all my patients. And one of the exams I do is I look at their uvula for any uvula deviation. But while I'm doing that, I also look at their tongue. And I found that being observant of skin color, tongue color, fingernails, how their fingernails look can tell you a lot about a person. So I end up incorporating that into
That's so awesome.
My patients.
I know it's probably so much more detailed than this, but what are a couple alarming things that you see by just looking at a person's tongue?
If you see a person's tongue and it has a lot of white coating on it, that's a sign that there's a problem.
Really?
Yeah. So you want to pay attention to the coating of the tongue, and you want to pay attention to the cracks in the tongue.
Okay.
A lot of people, I think, just feel it's natural, but the cracks in your tongue can tell you a lot about specifically your gut health.
Really?
So if I see someone that has significant amount of cracks, especially in the posterior portion of their tongue, I'm thinking they have a gut issue, and I'm going to start talking to them about diet. And where that, for me, correlates to what I do upper cervically, I had a mentor once by the name of Mike Anderson, and he told me that people who have gut issues tend to not have as clear of a pattern or not be able to hold their adjustment as long because of that gut. So that's something I make a note about so that when I go to look at their pattern, I keep that in mind. The other thing is I did a partial master's degree in nutrition, and a big aspect of the adjustment is clearing out inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
But we know that if you have inflammation in your gut due to bacterial overgrowth and things like this, you're going to always have some residual inflammation in your body. It's going to hinder my ability to clear that inflammation out and get your nervous system back online when I'm doing my adjustments. So that's something I then talk to the patient about and say, look, these are some things you can do at home. You can take control of your own health to help me help you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's such a broad area, and you could go on for that. But like, what are a couple quick things that you could tell your patients, obviously non-specifically, that they can do at home to just decrease the inflammation and get back on track?
I usually tell people stay away from everything white. You know, that's a good general rule. And I sometimes joke, when I was in Asia, I used to joke and say, everything white. You want to stay away from flour. You want to stay away from sugar. You want to stay away from milk. I said, in a lot of cases, you want to stay away from eggs. People don't usually lump that into the white. And I jokingly say into white people.
That's great. I like that. So also, you're pretty knowledgeable on Tai Chi, right?
Correct.
Now, what is Tai Chi and how is that beneficial? All the movements and everything, just getting people healthy? Because I don't really know much about it. I have just heard amazing things.
Yeah. So I mentioned I lived in Korea, but for 7 years, I went to China and studied Tai Chi under Grandmaster Chen Bin, who is the 12th generation lineage holder of the Chen family, which is the family who created Tai Chi.
Wow. So you learned it directly from the source.
Directly from the source. And I started my Tai Chi journey in Korea from a Chinese man that was living in Korea. And I got to a certain level, but I want to just go a little bit deeper.
Now, when you say you want to go deeper, it's an art form like almost within yourself, though, right?
So, yeah, this is the issue with Tai Chi. I feel that Tai Chi is super beneficial on so many levels, physical, mental, emotional, for anyone. But I feel that it's been bastardized a lot in American society, a lot along the lines with yoga, I would say.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And I think the reason for that is because, one, the timing. There's always these get your certification in 10-week online program or whatever. And that, I think that really dilutes the real value in Tai Chi. So first and foremost, people need to realize Tai Chi has all the health benefits that you've ever heard about. Tai Chi can do all those things for you. But first and foremost, Tai Chi is a martial art. And if you don't understand the martial art application of the moves, whether you're practicing it for that reason or not, you're not going to do the moves correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that I think is misleading with Tai Chi is that people feel that the movements themselves are the key to the benefit. The movements themselves really have no intrinsic value outside of their martial art application. It's the coordination of the body and the breathing connected to the movements that gives you that health benefit. So if you have an instructor that doesn't understand those first two components, you would get just as much a benefit from taking a dance class.
Gotcha. So when they're teaching it over there, like I said, I don't know much about it. When I see it, it's very slow. It's very precise. The movements, because you said it's a martial art. So how is it different training over there than over here?
First of all, it's a lot slower. So to give you an idea, I was flying from Korea to China to learn. I remember one time I flew over and I was all excited to meet my instructor. This had been about 4 years I had been training with him. For the first 7 years I was with him, I learned the same form every time I went over. No progression.
Wow.
But I remember one time I went over and I thought, I've put in several years now. He's going to teach me something really cool. Like he's going to teach me a sword form or something. This is going to be cool. And, he started looking at my movements and he started watching me and he said, you're pretty good. He said, you come along. He said, but I think we need to go back to the basics.
Wait, so this is 7 years?
Yeah.
And so he goes, let's go back to the basics, huh?
Let's go back to the basics. And what he had me do actually was he had me stand in what's called like a standing post posture, where you're standing with your hands out and your knees are bent, kind of like in a half squat position. And he just left me there for like 2 hours. Now, I was paying good money to learn.
Oh, man.
And you can imagine the frustration of being told to sit in a corner and basically squat. It's like, I didn't have to come to China to do this. But I started to realize that because they really lay the foundation, they really make sure you have the foundation, that's where you get the true benefit. And I feel like we're so quick in Western society to want to skip over that.
Yeah.
Get to the juicy stuff that
You're absolutely right.
We miss a lot of the true benefits there.
So as someone that doesn't know much about Tai Chi, what are the benefits without bastardizing it? So
the initial benefits.
What would people seek out for and that truly want to do it? What are the benefits if you're serious about it?
The first one is it definitely improves your circulation. When I talk about improving your circulation, anyone that has any kind of issues where they're feeling coldness in their hands or their feet, or they have trouble with temperature changes, Tai Chi will benefit you tremendously. The other aspect is anyone that's just looking for a way to learn how to focus their mind and not let things distract them as much. Tai Chi will teach you how to really be able to calm your mind down and just simplify things in your life. And then lastly, because Tai Chi is so slow and so intricate, you're actually using each part of your body. So you're really reprogramming those muscle memory connections, each movement from your fingertips all the way up to, your ear. that I feel like that's the real benefit when you hear about situations where Tai Chi helps ward off dementia or Parkinson's or things like that, because you're using these neuronal connections over and over and over again. You're firing them and firing them and firing them to where your brain actually becomes healthier.
Yeah. And at what point in the training do you speed it up? Because you said it's originally in a martial arts form and it's very slow. So at what point do you become sound enough to speed it up and actually use it as a martial art?
I would say after your first 2 years of practice, you can speed it up. Typically in Chen style, the first form is traditionally very slow, that what you would normally consider Tai Chi to look like. But the second form you learn is actually a very, very fast form, more of like a Kung Fu form, I would say.
And if you were looking to do Tai Chi in America and you want to kind of do it right, what would somebody look for? Do they even have the right classes over here?
They do. There's some qualified teachers in the United States, but I always tell people you have to understand the principles of Tai Chi. So if you find an instructor, one, first and foremost, make sure they have a good lineage. I don't mean to be rude about that, but that's important. You need to know who they learned from, and you need to know if they truly did learn from that person. Because if they didn't have a good teacher, chances are they're not going to be good themselves.
Yeah.
The second thing is you have to really understand the principles of Tai Chi. And there's books out there that explain the principles, but I'll just go through a few. Tai Chi is typically represented with what we refer to as the yin-yang sign. And with each movement of Tai Chi, it encompasses that yin-yang aspect. So each movement has an opening movement and a closing movement. There's a rising and a falling. There's a part where you breathe in. There's a part where you breathe out. And you have to be able to coordinate those into one cohesive, fluid movement. And that's when you're really practicing what my instructor refers to as Tai Chi. Because you're not practicing necessarily a set of movements. That's not what's important. It's you're then incorporating a set of principles. If you can find an instructor that can articulate that to you and show that to you, then you found a good instructor. But I will tell you that there's a lot of people that I question their legitimacy.
Yeah, definitely.
For example, I was at an acupuncture seminar one time and the instructor stood up. And
are you in America or are you over?
In America. And they mentioned they were going to teach the class a little bit of Tai Chi because it kind of worked with acupuncture.
Your ears probably lit up when you heard that. You're like, all right, let's see what's going on here.
Well, I didn't say anything, but my good friend that I went all through chiropractic school with, sat next to me. He kept kicking me under the table and laughing. And I tried to just, I don't like to tell people. And so, but she stood up and she said, which way in this room is north? And we were all kind of confused. And she's like, I need someone to take out their phone and tell me where north is, because you can never, ever practice Tai Chi if you're not going north, because it'll mess your body up.
No way.
And my friend started kicking me and he's like, is that true? And I looked over to him and I think this is a good rule for anyone. If it doesn't make sense, it probably doesn't make sense. So I said to him, I said, let's think about this. My instructor is world famous. He travels the world giving demonstrations. Can you imagine he pulls up at Madison Square Garden and the stage is facing south and they're going to cancel the show? And he's like, oh, I guess that's a good point. And I said, it's an excellent point. So there are principles. There are holistic things that we need to pay attention to. But then there's also people kind of get carried away with it.
Absolutely.
I would like to warn people about being gullible about those things.
Now, Dr. Chad, you are a chiropractor and we haven't even touched on that yet. How did you go from all of this back to America to chiropractic school? What resonated with you and what made you choose the field? Because it sounds like you were doing a lot of phenomenal stuff before this.
So again, I had those ongoing injuries. I actually reached a point where I tore the cartilage, all the cartilage in my hip, and I ended up getting hip surgery, not a hip replacement, but they went in, they kind of shaved down the head of my hip, and then they kind of repaired the cartilage. And at that time, again, it set me back. I didn't know if I'd ever be able to do martial arts again. So kind of like the whole football thing all over again.
Wow.
And I actually met a very, very famous martial artist in Korea. His name is Sobuk Sup. And he is the first ever student of the founder of hapkido, living legend. And I met him and I went to his apartment. I was lucky enough to do that. I was on TV a few times in Korea. So they did a Korean special on me.
Really?
And I went around and I met a bunch of famous Korean martial artists, and he was one of them. That's how I met him. I met him through the TV company. And afterwards, we formed a relationship, and he gave me his number. And so I'd reach out to him from time to time and go and visit him. He was very old. He's very old. He was in his 80s.
Yeah. That must have been like mind-blowing for you. That must have been an unreal experience.
Yeah. And at one point, I was telling him about my hip, and he had me lay down on his table, and he started feeling my neck and feeling my back, and he touching my hips, and then he put a board on my hips, and he goes, "Your pelvis is twisted."
Wow.
That's how come you tore your cartilage. Your pelvis is twisted. Has anyone ever told you that? And I said, no. I said, but I can see it now. And he said, wait a minute. And he gave me a chiropractic adjustment. Well, lo and behold, I didn't realize this man was actually the head of the Korean Chiropractic Federation.
Wow.
And chiropractic still to this day is illegal in Korea, but this federation
is illegal?
Illegal.
Wow.
So he's been fighting, him and this federation, for years for Korea to accept chiropractic. The only way someone can practice chiropractic in Korea is if you work under a doctor. So an MD or an Oriental medicine doctor. So a lot of Oriental medicine doctors take seminars and they actually do it. So I received a few adjustments from my acupuncturist, not knowing that it was actually chiropractic until I met this man.
Wow.
He kind of clued me in on more about what chiropractic was. And it was at that time I went to my wife and I said, look, I want to figure out what's wrong with me. I want to be able to understand it for myself. And I said, at this point, I had to take some time off from martial arts. I think this would be a perfect transition for me. Instead of getting frustrated, I can use this time to learn and start a new career. And my wife agreed. So we moved back to America.
Dr. Chad, are you a professional martial artist over there? Is that like what was going on?
I was a certified instructor by the Korean and Chinese government. I did run a martial arts school.
Wow. Okay. So that's what you were doing. That's how you got your income and everything.
It was part of my income.
Okay.
I was a university professor as well.
Okay. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
So we're back to America.
So I came back to America and I reached out to a family friend that was a chiropractor, and he mentioned that I should look at a few different schools. One of them was Life University. The other was National University. But he never mentioned Palmer. In a roundabout way, I found out, that Palmer was actually the head of where everything was started. But I never went and visited. I only went to visit Life and National. I actually went to Northwestern because someone else mentioned Northwestern. But I had no real idea other than what I had learned from the man in Korea and what I researched on the internet about what chiropractic really was. And I ended up choosing Life University, and I went there. And I remember I'm sitting in my first class and someone turns to me and says, so what technique are you going to do? And I was like, wait, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, there's like 3,000 techniques. What technique are you going to do? And I said, well, the best one, I guess. What's the best technique? And at that time, there was a big like Gonstead presence on campus. And some people were saying, oh, you got to do Gonstead. And so I looked into Gonstead at first. I ended up kind of going through the gamut. I think I'd probably been to every seminar known to man.
Yeah.
Until I found upper cervical.
And what was it that resonated with you with the upper cervical?
Well, I think the way Life University works is you start practicing full spine, which is what I like to refer to as traditional chiropractic for those that aren't familiar with the technique, in your technique classes. And that's when you practice on each other, so your other classmates. And then you go into a student clinic where you're allowed to see family, friends, other people on campus. And then you go into outpatient clinic, which is you see the general public. So it's like a few different levels there. And I remember I got up to student clinic and I was seeing my wife and my two children. And I remember I would adjust them. I'd hear a cavitation or a pop, as people like to refer to it. And I'd ask, how do you feel? And they said, good, I guess. Or,
Yeah.
And then I palpate and I feel with my hands, and the professors always go around and they'd make you verify what you were going to adjust before they let you adjust it. And sometimes I'd find a segment and a professor would come over and say, no, I think it's the segment above. And then they'd walk away and another professor would walk up and say, no, I think it's the segment below that. Mm-hmm. And I just felt that was not very scientific. Mm-hmm. And then I ended up getting adjusted around that time by a friend in a dorm room, and he kind of cracked my neck real good. And they thought I was having a stroke. I was bars and ended up in the emergency room. And for a short time, I said, I'm done with chiropractic.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Yeah.
I went to a seminar by Ray Drury. And Ray Drury, if you don't know, he's an upper cervical knee chest doctor. But he said the power of upper cervical chiropractic is it answers a few very important questions. He said the first question it answers is where to adjust. And then it answers the question of when to adjust. And most importantly, it answers the question of when not to adjust.
I love that.
And when I heard that, I said, those are the three things I've been looking for.
Mm-hmm.
From that point on, I knew it was upper cervical or nothing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so, Dr. Chad, where are you located and where can people find you? And you incorporate Atlas orthogonal upper cervical, which is with the instrumentation, right?
Correct.
So yeah, just talk about your practice a little bit, where you're located and everything.
So I'm located in Cape May Courthouse in New Jersey. We're about a mile from the beach. It's down in the southern tip of New Jersey. I'm an upper cervical practice. I practice actually orthospinology, which is a form of orthogonal chiropractic where we do use instrumentation. So I don't use my hands. In rare cases, I do incorporate some knee chest at times, but for the most part, instrumentation. And your adjustment is based off of the vectors we find from your x-ray. So it's very specific and very tailored. No two patients receive the same adjustment, I should say.
Definitely.
And we use the Titron thermographic instrumentation to tell when and when not to adjust the patient, as well as we incorporate Blair leg checks to further our analysis to just make sure we're adjusting patients when they need it.
That's amazing. And do you have a website for your practice or yourself?
Sure. My website is summitchiropracticnj.com. I have all the information on there. I have a bunch of good videos. I encourage all the listeners today to go out and check that website out. If you have any family or members or friends down in this area, or you come down here on vacation, it's a big vacation spot, please stop in and see me. I'd be happy to help you.
Yes. Dr. Chad is very gifted and very talented at what he does. And Dr. Chad, closing question. What is one piece of advice you have taken with you throughout all your years of experience that have really resonated with you that you would like to share or gift the audience? Could be anything.
I would say the best piece of advice I can give to someone is keep learning and keep an open mind. Keep an open mind in all things and always question what you think you know.
Definitely. All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Chad. I would love to have you back on sometime in the near future. And I'll probably see you next month at the Blair seminar.
I look forward to it. Thank you so much.
All right. You're welcome. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you enjoy the podcast, subscribe, give us 5 stars, and leave a review. It really helps boost the podcast and spread the good word. My chiropractic practice is located in West Orange, New Jersey at Montclair Upper Cervical Chiropractic. You can also find us on Facebook at Montclair Upper Cervical Chiropractic. All of my information is on my website at drkevinpecca.com, drkevinpecca.com. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel at Dr. Kevin Pecca for podcast episodes, patient testimonials, and educational videos. I have daily affirmations and inspirational quotes on Instagram at Easel Affirmations, EASEL Affirmations. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me at drkevinpecca@gmail.com, drkevinpecca@gmail.com. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day. Cheers.